Hi there, back at Alex's man shed. Today I'm going to show you how to change all the cables on a bicycle, on a racing bike. Inside. There we go. Okay, we've got a couple of bikes here. So it's this racing bike here, this Colnago. What's happening is that when I'm trying to change the gears, the cables are really sluggish. So what I'm going to do is change all of these brake lining, brake cables and gear shift cables, which come down here and all the way down to the back, and hopefully that'll sort everything out. Okay, let's get started. Put the bike on a stand and dismantle the existing cable. Okay, video running. Hi there, Alex here from Manshed Tips. Today I've got a 2004 Colnago that's still in perfect condition, but the gears are starting to become a little bit stiff. So I'm going to replace all of the cable sheaths and hopefully and lubricate it, and hopefully that makes it good as new. Stay tuned. Boxing, let's see what we get. Make sure nothing else inside. Yeah, no. Throw that away. Okay, so we get basically a packet with the genuine inner cable inners and the outer sheaths, which are the low friction ones. You get these thick sheaths, thick outer sheaths, and you get the thinner ones. So the thick ones are for the brakes, which go with these are the brake cables. They're a bit thicker. And then the thinner sheaths go with the thinner cables, and these are for the controls, basically for the gears here. So these are the ones that basically run down here, and that runs all the way down to the back gear. So it comes through here, around there, and basically that's, so when I'm pushing across, I'm finding these very stiff. So that's why I'm actually changing them. Put some of this superior lubricant, basically just to give the cables a little bit of extra slip before I put them together. Okay, other important tools, you have to have one of these cable cutters, which basically, you see the way when it goes around a cable, it will pinch it from all sides so that you don't actually squash the cable. So you must have all the correct tools, otherwise don't. Is actually remove these rubber covers, the boot covers, and I've got to remove the bar tape just to expose the cables. So I'll get on with that. I use a 5mm Allen key, and there's a bolt in the front of the brake lever, which I'm going to undo so that I can take the brake and gear lever off. So it just comes undone. Take it out the whole way. So that's come loose now. The cables are holding it in place. Now you see there's this tape that's holding holding the cables in place. So I'm going to just cut that. I'll cut that off. Another good tip is, you see, before you take this is the mounting bracket for the actual brake lever. You should actually get a pen and mark it. So I've marked blue this side and that side. Then you'll have, otherwise you see the way your gear lever, your brake lever has to sit exactly where you want it, where you're comfortable. If you don't mark that position, you might end up with your brake further down. So just be careful to mark it. So that's what it looks like now. See, now the cables have come loose. So now I'm actually going to take this off and give it a bit of a clean and a bit of a service. Undo the existing brake cable, because like now the handle's off here, so you want to exchange these cables, these sheets with exactly the same length. So you've got to take them off one at a time so you don't mix it up, and you cut the new ones to the exact length. So I'm just going to undo this here, because you're not going to reuse the cables. That's why we're replacing them, because we reckon they're worn out. So we can use our little wire. That's where these special cutters come in handy, because they don't damage the cables. They just give you a nice clean cut, and then you see that'll just pull straight out. So that's the brake cable, and then on the right hand side is the gear, which basically, let me move the camera. Same with this back here. I'm just going to cut the little cable collector off, and then I'm going to undo this stopper. That's basically the end of the cable for the rear derailleur. That's come undone now, and you see that this will all come out. So now this piece we want to actually cut and get to the same size, and then pull the cable all the way through. Okay, so here's the right hand shifter off, but now what I do is I always mark the old cables in blue, just so you don't mix up and then put one of your old cables back by mistake. Now I'm going to cut them to the same length. Okay, my next plan is now I just want to clean out all of these gears inside here. So I'm going to soak this in petrol for a little bit. Just give it a bit of I've got a bowl here with petrol. So I'll just soak that in there. And I'm going to remove the cables, the old cables, because they do get quite a bit of dust in them. Yeah, I think I've got a hole in this. I do. We're going to put this outside. It's a good plan not to have a hole in your petrol container. I'm going to find something that's... Yeah, I'll use this metal one. That'll work. Cool. On with it. Just so you know, the outer cables, the ones for the brakes, the fat ones, are 4.9 millimeter, which is, call it 5 mil, and the thinner ones, which are for your actual gear selection, are 4.1. So 4.1 to just under 5 are the two different thicknesses. So don't mix make sure you don't mix the cables up. Otherwise, that could cause trouble. And then on the actual cables themselves, the brake cable is about 1.6 mil and 1.1 mil. So 1.6 versus 1.1 millimeters. So that's just so you make sure you don't use the wrong cables. All right, I'm now going to take first of all, I'll take the back one, which is marked blue, and I'll take the new back one. That's most probably been cut to exactly the right length. Yeah, this one's exactly to the right length. So I'll start off with replacing this cable and open up the thin ones. So these are the thin ones which go, now there'll be one long one and one short one. So the long one is obviously for the rear. Oh, and they're beautiful. You can see they're really shiny and slippery. That's why it's really best to get and make sure you don't kink them. They've just given me, let's see if the lengths are the same. No, one's long and one's short. So we'll use the longer one. We'll put that one there. So the longer one. Sure, they're slippery. It's like trying to hold a snake. And then you'll also see it's got a smaller head than the brake ones. So the brake one has got this really fat head, look. A really fat head versus the gear one has the very small soldered head. So you can't mix them up. Okay, now I'm going to, I think let me cut the cables first, and then I'll put a bit of grease on them. I'll get ready and then I'll come back. I see Campag's come up with like a real nice little invention. It's basically a dust protection. So this is the one that goes on the back derailleur, and it's got this little cover, which basically you put over, and the cable runs in there and stops any dirt getting into the cable and fouling it. That's really cool. And that goes onto the back of the bike. So this other one will go on here. Before I assemble the cables now, I'm just going to put a little bit of this fluid that I got, just to get a little bit of extra. Get a couple of drops that comes out the other end. There, okay, see it dropping out the other end. Now you don't want too much in there. I just wanted to, so I'm going to blow it out with this here, high compression. So it'll just have a slight hint of it in the line. And I'll put a couple of drops down here also. It's a really nice little. That's why you're paying for the good stuff, because they've got all these little extra little, and the cables, if you feel them, they are so slippery compared to the ones I've just taken out. I actually, unfortunately, I couldn't get hold of Campag last time, but I won't make that mistake again. So I'm looking forward to this really being nice and smooth. Now that I've cleaned and oiled the brake lever, I'm going to stick it back on in position. And because I've got those markings that I showed you earlier, I know exactly where it goes. So I can put that in exactly the right position. Now it's all nice and clean. Now this has got to be quite tight, because obviously this is what you hang on when you're riding. Your hand rests on your brake grip. But obviously don't over tighten it. And that's probably not finger tight, but don't over tighten it, just your feel. There, that's cool, firm. Okay, now I've got to put the actual cable sheaths on. I'm just going to go and cut some. Press pause here. Another thing you need to check is on the underside of the bike, you have this is where the cable slides. So you need just to make sure that hasn't worn a groove. So you can see this one, it's still okay. Otherwise, you've got to replace that. And that's on the bottom of the bike. You can see if I zoom out. You see that's on the underside of the bike. So just check that before you put everything back together. Okay, I've now refitted the cable that I've cut. Underneath the bike, I'll put all the new edges they've given us. I've now just put a little bit of grease on the screw stopper here. I've cleaned it. This is an adjustment to tension the cable if the cable stretches at a later stage. Well, it will stretch once you put the new cables in. So you wind it all the way in. And here's my nice new cable. Let's get my Allen key. Don't forget to put the little end caps on, little chrome end caps. Keeps the cable together. It's all pretty finicky work. There we go, pushes through. That pushes on the end there, then that loops around. Make sure you don't bend anything. You want to try and keep all the radiuses nice and easy. You don't want any kinks in the cable. And I'm just going to temporarily sort of clamp this cable. Just whilst we make sure everything else is, I'm not going to do any cutting or anything, but the cable is pretty much the right length. All right, so that's okay, just so it's clear. So this is the new cable that starts here. Okay, I haven't taped it to the bar yet. It goes down, comes to the frame where the adjuster's put all the way in, goes down to the bottom of the frame, comes underneath, goes through that little cover, runs under the frame. There's the little dust cover that we said, loops around, and then fastens to the jockey. Okay, now we'll see what's happening. Okay, so the whole idea now, let's just check the gears. Oh, it's way easier. Nice and the gears are slipping nice and easy. Ooh. Before I'd have to heave on the gear chain. Yeah, I'm happy with that. I'll just lower the bike back down. Okay, now I'm just going to put the brake cable back on, and then that's the right side completed. Okay, now I've got both the cables on. So I've run the brake cable now. And now I'll just put a little bit of tension on the brake. So I won't cut any of the cables yet until we establish. Make sure you don't get any oil from your hands onto the actual wheel rim, otherwise you'll mess up the braking. Get that a little bit back out. And put a bit of slack on there. I'm going to unscrew the stopper a little bit just so I can adjust the brakes once the cable's on. Put it quite tight. See, the cables will stretch and they'll seat in. See, that's almost closing right down. So I'll loosen this off, and now that I've stretched it a little bit, pull the cable through a little bit more. That pulled quite a bit. tighten it again. So it'll be the same with the gears. First couple of times you use them, the cables will seat and they'll sort of stretch into place. Okay. A little bit tight. Yeah, that's good. It's not holding the wheel in any way. So that's probably pretty close where it needs to be. With the gears, we'll just test them once more. Now they're changing very easy, beautiful. Now you see the cable's gone quite sloppy up here. See that? And I've got to tension that a bit because they're seating. I don't know if you can see that. I've tensioned that a little bit. Okay, that should be, let's try that now. It should be should have a little bit of, basically the first click, it should rise up again, so it's not, so I'll basically wind the tension out until it moves up one gear. And then it's starting. There. Yeah, so that hopped up again. So now that's the correct length. Drop it down, bring it up again. There, beautiful. Perfect, into first. So that's success. So all I've got to do now is actually fasten these cables down, but I don't want to bend them. I'm going to have to be very careful how I do it. I'm going to have a quick look. I'm going to show you so you know. So you see here, we don't want to be, if I zoom back out. So these cables now, I don't want to kink this cable. So I want to find the best route to tape it to the bar that, because it's got two channels. So it's going to most probably run in that first channel, but you don't want to kink it. So we'll have a quick look. Okay, so the first one that I've actually taped to the handlebar is the brake one, and now I'm going to do the gear one. But I was going to be very careful not to kink it. I want to give it its most natural line without getting a crease in the cable. I've got the bar tape back on now. Just wind it back on. Now I'm going to put the boot on, and then we're good to go. Same thing, don't force it. I've sort of wet it slightly. Don't put soap on, because the problem is then if you're riding and you get a bit of rain, then your boot will slip. But if you put a little bit of water on just to get it on, it helps it slip on. And then there you go. You find it's got like some little notches that it's got to pop into. And that, ladies and gentlemen, all finished. You see it all nice. And to check the gears. Coming up all nicely. As I said, look, the cables will stretch again, so you'll start getting some play on these. So, and then you just adjust it at the back there. So that's how you do it. Good luck.